problem is not here. It's just not. Ah, now it's good. It was good. You did so. Oh, there it is. The final. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschachade Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. We made it. At least some of us made it. I saw one bus. In the beginning, we had 8 buses. So some people had to go to different places. And some of you were able to stay. How many are here now, but will not be here for the question and answer session? Okay. I'll be here. Two things before we begin class 21. This morning somebody sent me something I'd like to share with you. It's an example of mercy from Krishna given to a very unsuspecting person. We heard something, several things yesterday about mercy being given to unsuspecting persons. Grandma, and how she got charged by reading Prabhupada's books, read one of Prabhupada's books, and then she became infected and started infecting everybody else in her family. Here's another one. Saint Teresa Seville. I think that's Italy. Yes? Somebody know? She was a female saint. She wrote her experiences as a saint. Accounts of Conscience is the title of the book, translated into English. Date August 19, 1575, which is shortly after Mahaprabhu left the world. In short, she had a darshan of Krishna. Suddenly a recollection came to me with such a great interior light that I seemed to be in another world. And my spirit found itself within, in a very delightful forest and orchard. So much so that it made me remember what it is said in the Song of Songs, gives the Latin, "Come he, my beloved, to his garden, and eat its delicious fruits. I saw there in this Latin name where she saw a blackish youth with a strange beauty. On top of his head, he had something like a garland, not a crown, of great stones. And many maidens who walked there with him with bouquets in their hands and singing praises. I did nothing but open my eyes so as to not be distracted, and it was not possible for me to take my attention off it. And she goes on. This lasted for more than an hour and a half, that I could not take my eyes off or my attention, and with great delight, something different from other visions. And what I got from there was more love for God and keeping him more deeply present with that beauty. It is not possible that it was imagination. 1575. So a contemplation about this. Krishna's mercy, which is what we spoke about yesterday, we'll be speaking again about today, has no boundaries. All that it takes, all that it takes from our side is receptivity, and a kind of qualified receptivity, a kind of eagerness to be engaged in eternally in the Supreme Personality of Godhead's loving service. And the mercy is there. Similarly, something I meant to share with you yesterday, this form of Narayana that we saw in the morning. No. Ramapriya, day before yesterday. So the pujari that was taking us here and there and showing us different things explained why the deity is called Ramapriya. And it's called, the deity is called the Utsav Murti. Remember, Ramanujacharya had a dream. The Utsav Murti was with a king in Delhi, a Muslim king. So he went to the Muslim king, said, Utsav Murti, please. So he went and all the treasury of stolen paraphernalia and wasn't there. Another dream, it's with his daughter. She has the deity as her plaything. And he went into the chambers where men are not there, and the deity was there, and the deity jumped off the couch and went running. And he embraced the deity embraced him, and he brought the deity to the place where the deity is now being worshipped. So the pujari explained how the deity got the name Ramapriya, because Lord Ramachandra worshipped the deity of Ramapriya, and the deity of Ramapriya was manifest from the heart of Narayan, who was manifest in Satyaloka without a carver making the deity. So these are self-manifesting deities. Like, these are amazing for Ramapriya. The Lord manifests himself due to the love of his devotees. So all we have to do is develop some love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's all. And of course, if he so desires, if he so desires, he may manifest. And even if he doesn't manifest in a form like Saint Teresa saw, the manifestation can be there in various ways according to his liking. And according his liking has to do with our devotion. And that's our life. That's our life. And our life is to receive that mercy. And so returning to some topic that we discussed yesterday, here's from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Can you see okay? Good. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Kanda 1:325. Krishna's para, or antaranga, or Swarup Shakti, manifests Krishna's Audarya, Madhurya, and Aishvarya spiritual pastimes. Same message from Chaitanya Bhagavat finds its way in Jivadharma, chapter 17, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writing. Sri Krishna and Sri Gauranga are non-different in terms of tattva. They are the same absolute truth, and both are the fountainheads. Now notice the spelling. This is not Madhurya, it's Madhura, Rasa's nectarian honey-like mellows. So the focus is now going to Madhura Rasa. However, there are two ways in which Madhura Rasa manifests. Madhurya, or transcendental conjugal sweetness, very beautiful painting of Krishna with so many gopis like Mother or Saint Teresa saw. Krishna, in his sweetness aspect, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Audarya, or transcendental magnanimity aspect, both coming from the internal or para or antaranga shaktis of the Supreme Lord, but different receptacles. And the distribution of the Audarya feature is from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's those are our focus yesterday, our focus again this morning. When Madhurya, that's an aspect of the Lord's internal potency, when that aspect of the Lord's internal potency is preeminent, Sri Krishna is manifest. And when Audarya is prominent, Sri Gauranga is manifest. Now they're the same personality, the same tattva, but different features of the same tattva, Supreme Hari, different features are manifest. Which tells us something that we should understand from this, that we have come in contact with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the mercy of the representatives of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so we're in a very fortunate position. This is now just cut and paste. Cut and paste from Jivadharma, or a translation of Jivadharma. In the original Vrindavan Goloka, there are two symmetrical halves, Krishna Pita, the abode of Sri Krishna, and Gora Pita, the abode of Sri Gauranga. So look closely as you can, because on the right side There's Radha Krishna in the center, and on the right side is Krishna with his pastimes in Vrindavan, and on the left side is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Kirtan. Can you see? Kind of. It's there. On the left side is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So halves and halves, same Goloka. Now, what's here is also found in Sri Brahma Samhita. That's also found in Sri Brahma Samhita. So now, same whirl at the center. Let's go back. Around the whirl that's at the center, there's petals. According to Sri Brahma Samhita, the central petals are the abodes of various gopis. You can't see the name, but the Ashtasakhi's petals are the first just outside of the whirl of the lotus, and then abodes of other residents of and associates of Krishna surrounding that whirl at the center. So now we're just going to look at the whirl at the center. In Krishna Pita resides those jivas whose devotional mood is primarily madhurya, appended with audarya, appended with, joined with, mixed with, appended with, audarya. They are the devotees of Sri Krishna. And on the right side, and the illustration is on the left. In Gora Pita reside those jivas whose devotional mood is most prominently, most pronouncedly, audarya, supported by madhurya. They are the eternal servitors of Sri Gauranga. Got it? Jivadharma concludes, in certain cases, some eternally liberated souls are present simultaneously in both pitas through their Swarup Vyuha, personal expansions. In other instances, particular Parshadas participate in one pitta, in their spiritual form being absent in the other. Now, what he has written here in Jivadharma differs slightly from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his explanation of Sri Brahma Samhita. His explanation of Sri Brahma Samhita is very interesting. That portion of Krishna Loka, the world portion, he's identified as Shweta-dweep because it's in more than one place within the verses of Sri Brahma Samhita. And Shweta-dweepa literally means white island, and it also indicates, according to Bhaktisiddhanta, that portion of Goloka where Lord Chaitanya resides with his associates, Shweta-dweep. Now, the Shweta-dweep term applies to different things in different contexts, so I won't go into what those are. But in Sri Brahma Samhita, his indication is, in Brahma Samhita, it's indicating that portion of Goloka Vrindavan where Lord Chaitanya and his associates eternally reside. And what he explains, Bhaktisiddhanta explains, is a little different than what you see on the screen. He says, the followers, those who become perfected souls, small thing, becoming perfected soul, resuming perfection, those who become resumed in their stage of perfection, they simultaneously enter into both Krishna Lila and Gaur Lila. And he doesn't elaborate, but just like in Gaur Gunadesh Dipika, every one of Lord Chaitanya's associates has a counterpart in Krishna's Lila. or vice versa. Everyone in Krishna's Leela has their counterpart in Gora Leela, because the perfected souls manifest themselves or their spiritual forms in both. I'm pausing. Let it sink in. When we get on this train, where's it going? What's the destination? All aboard. Back home, back to Godhead. Who'd like to go? Everyone raises their hand. Hari Bol, Hari, Hari. So what's it like there? What's the travel advertisement? There are different travel advertisements for different places, different destinations. I've shared this many, many times. I think it's appropriate to share it here. As a youngster growing up in America, like Grandma, and Bhaktin Dora, I grew up in a Christian family, not a Catholic family, Protestant family, and I heard about heaven. And I asked, what's it like there? What's the travel advertisement? When you go there, what's it like? Curious, inquisitive. Nobody could say without the details. And without further details, I just got busy being when I was supposed to be, successful, doing what you're supposed to do when you're successful. And everybody knows what that is. You'll start with academics. And then social and, because I was a young boy, sports and stuff. Be successful. Fit the mold. Be like you're supposed to be, successful. And then Krishna's mercy, I started becoming inquisitive again. But I still didn't know what heaven was, then what to speak of what Vaikuntha was, that there's a distinction between heaven and the kingdom of God, and what to speak of the distinction between the kingdom of God and Goloka, what to speak of distinctions between divisions in Goloka. Gosh, how to fathom all of that? But anything that happens in our lives has something to do with our sincerity of wanting to know, having a receptacle when that something that you want to know is given, and that's something that you want to know. I just described it at the very beginning, but it's a heart that says, you can start with, I want that which is real. And then Madhvacharya has we heard yesterday, his definition of what's real. And the predominant mood in Madhva's line is Aishvarya. So that's one of the manifestations of Para Shakti, or Antaranga Shakti. Or the Lord will give to the sincere and qualified student or inquisitive soul that which connects one with reality. And to enter understanding of what to speak of, enter reality, or in his terms, enter Vishnu Loka, that there's qualifications. In our Gaudiya terminology, it's one thing. In his terminology, it's another thing. But you can't just barge in. There's protectors keeping unqualified people out. So here on the screen, we heard yesterday repeating that what we've heard consistently throughout this yatra. Madhva had two emphasis points. Following Varnashram duties, we heard it yesterday, right? The Acharya of the Sri Krishna Mat answering Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What's the sadhya and the sadhana, the goal and how to get there. So one of the things how to get there, that sadhana, is this one, the Varnashram system, where everything that is done, not 50%, 20%, 80%, everything that's done is for the satisfaction of the Supreme, Hari. And side by side, deity worship. Deity worship in the mood of Aishwarya. We're going to see shortly some nice Aishwarya worship of Sri Krishna in Udupi. In opulence, following the vidhis. Got to follow the vidhis. And according to vidhis, there are certain persons, of course, we mentioned, to be qualified to worship a deity. And without going through all of that again, when that qualification comes, it may take lifetimes, but when that qualification comes, the combination of these two, worshiping the deity strictly according to vidhis, and perform your varnashram duties, where everything is meant for the satisfaction of Hari. So in this particular presentation, it just shows ISKCON deity worship was not exactly Madhva worship. So there's a nice drawing of Madhvacharya seated with his Udupi Krishna deity, personally worshipping, showing by example, personally worshipping his Sri Krishna deity. Maybe you noticed, I hope you noticed, that Madhva had a system, the 8 temples or mutts that he had established had an acharya for each of them. And he installed the acharya for each of them, and their successor acharyas continue. And one of the documents you were supposed to have received, let me know if you received it or not, was the list of the 8 mutts and the presiding deity of those 8 mutts. Did you receive it? Some received it. I only saw a few hands. So thank you very much. Whoever is responsible for this, please see that they get a list of the names of the deities. So when we went to Udupi Krishna temple, maybe some of you saw off and to the side was the personality, the acharya from one of the mutts, who was a worshipper of Kaliya Krishna. And what he did was he brought the deity with him. When he takes the responsibility of overseeing that temple for that month, it was 2 months. 1 month or 2 months? 2 years. 2 years. Okay. So he brought his deity with him from the mutt. And so he was sitting there interacting with people. And over there was his deity, because he keeps his deity with him. So that's the system in Udupi. And the worship is done with Aishwarya. Here's one of the pujaris who, like Madhvacharya, following the example of Madhvacharya, taking the responsibility during those 2 years, is worshipping Udupi Krishna very opulently. So that's one of the aspects of the internal potency or parashakti that the Supreme Lord gives. And Madhvacharya was a giver of that through a certain system. Now, in the beginning of this little presentation, we heard about the Madhurya mode, and we're starting with Uddhava, because Uddhava, as I'm sure you remember, Uddhava was Krishna's dear cousin and friend, living in Mathura. Krishna sent Uddhava, most qualified Uddhava, to go to Vrindavan, to get an experience of the mood of Vrindavan, which is not just Aishwarya, but Madhurya. Madhurya. And when he saw the mood of the gopis, not only the gopis, there's detailed description. He saw also, he first went, he paid his respects to Yasoda and Nanda. And he was overwhelmed. They couldn't even see him because of their tears, and he was floored. The intensity of the love of the residents of Vrindavan, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then what to speak of the gopis. So much so that he desired to become a blade of grass, so the gopis might trample on him, or dust from their feet might float in the air and land on his little blade of grass body. He wanted the mercy. It's a nice lesson, wanting the mercy, because that's the theme of Audarya also, as a giver of mercy. And then some time passed, and one of the followers or initiated disciples in the Madhva line was Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri moved from the Aishwarya mood to the Madhurya mood, or Madhura. And you see this nice verse. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he would say every day, again and again and again and again, not just verses from Vedanta Sutra, but this particular mood. It was a cultivation of a mood. Just like we have mantras and we have scriptures, and we may have our favorite slokas and things. And all of them, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all of them are leading us to the mood of Krishna in Vrindavan, because he's the topmost form, and the topmost form is the worship Ramya Kachit Vrajavadu Vargena Sa Kalpita, is the mood of the cowherd damsels of Braja, and their mood of worship and loving Krishna. So this is the verse. I'll give you the translation in a moment. But he, Madhavendra Puri, being gifted by the personality of Godhead to exhibit this mood, cultivated the mood. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura. Mathura in this sense, meaning not just the city, but the overall place in which Vrindavan is situated. When shall I see you again? So the mood of love and separation that the gopis felt. Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? So, Kim Karomyaham, the last line. Kim Karomyaham, what shall I do now? He doesn't have an answer. He's just like, what do I do? What do I do? And that mood passed on to his disciple. Ishwara Puri passed on to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't need something passed on to him, but to set an example, passed on to him. And he in turn passed it on to the Goswamis and many others. And Sad Goswami Astaka, the 8 prayers glorifying the 6 Goswamis. Let us say together, Hey Radhe Vraja Devi Ke Chalalite, Hey Nanda Sunakuta, Shri Govardhana Kalpapada Taltili, Kalindi Vanye Kuta, Gostam Niti Sarvato Vrajapure, Kedair Mahavivalao, Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago, Sri Jiva Gopalago. So all the 6 Goswamis, not that others are excluded, but they most prominently exhibited this mood. You see in colored letters, there's Kedair Mahavivalao. Translation, Oh, Queen of Vrindavan Radharani. Oh, Lalita. Oh, son of Nanda Maharaj. Where are you now? Are you just on the hill of Govardhan? Or are you under the trees on the bank of the Yamuna? Where are you now? Kim Karom Yaham. These were the moods, these were their moods in executing Krishna consciousness, received by the merciful Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who gave Madhurya in the mood of the gopis. And we're somehow, it depends on your heart vessel. Is it open to receive that mood? Rupa Goswami, one of his many, many verses, describing this mood of love and separation as the gopis felt. Separation from Krishna is better than meeting him. When I meet him, there's only one Krishna. And when I'm separated from him, the three worlds become filled with Krishnas. Separation is better, according to Rupa Goswami, and he knows. We don't know. And passing that same mood on to Narottam Das Thakur, Lalita Vishakha Adi, Jata Sakhi Brinda, with the permission of Lalita Vishakha and all the other Sakhis, I will serve the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Now, this isn't the mood of separation, but it's the mood of love of Radha and Krishna, which the six Goswamis had as they received from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And according to Raghunath Das Goswami, he also received from Swarup Damodar. And they're all swimming in this love for Krishna, this mood. We saw this verse 3 times before. Here it is again. Maybe we should say it together. Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachit Upasana Vrajavatu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumarto Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabho Matam Idam Tatrap Naparaha. So especially this in the colored letters, Ramya Kachit Upasana. Upasana means worship. Ramya Kachit Upasana. The most pleasing form of worship for the Lord is that which was performed by the gopis of Vrindavan. The first line is, his abode is Vrindavan. He is the son of Maharaj Nanda, in case we might get confused because there may be different Krishnas. That one. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Bhagavatam is the spotless authority that reveals the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everything about him, especially his loving pastimes and his loving dealings. So there's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the right, and there's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the left. Not only giving, but experiencing. That's what we heard yesterday. He taught by his own example, naturally. And his own example was he entered deeply, otherworldly deeply, into the mood of love of the gopis, or specifically even the mood of Srimati Radharani, Radha Bhava, the mood of Radharani in his service to Krishna, or her service to Krishna. And that's his feature of Audarya. I wish we had everybody that was with us in the beginning present for this one. It's nice. It's kind of like meant to be a summation of everything that we've been doing and Lord Chaitanya's South India tour and his gift that we're meant to be the recipients of. So this is his Audarya, and it had different manifestations besides the ones we mentioned yesterday morning and yesterday afternoon. Here's one. The focus is on this aspect of Daya, as we see from the painting. This is pastime in Jagannath Puri. He was standing as he would do in the back with humility by the Garuda Stamba. And one elderly lady, wanting to see Lord Jagannath, she was too short, so she stood on Lord Chaitanya's shoulders, holding on to the Garuda Stamba, so that she could see Lord Jagannath. And you see on the right his assistant, get down, get down. And Lord Chaitanya stopped him. No, no, no. If only I had that kind of enthusiasm, my life would be perfect. So enthusiasm for what? In this case, darshan of the Supreme Lord. Now he had the privilege to stand wherever he wanted. In his mood, he stood towards the back by the Garuda Stamba, but honoring those, because of his mercy, those that have such enthusiasm or eagerness. According to Rupa Goswami's writings, this is the price, the singular price. You know the state. If love of God is available, purchase it immediately. For whatever the price, purchase it immediately, whatever the price. And what's the price? Lolyam. Lolyam isn't just having a desire, it's an intense desire. It's more than an intense desire, it's greed. So we're not there yet. We're still worried about the problems and solving our problems. What to speak of the goal of life. We heard yesterday the Audarya feature of Mahaprabhu was manifest very specially with Ramananda Roy in this nice painting. And the background is who Ramananda Roy was traveling with. There's some brahmanas and there's some ministers in his government because he was the governor of Madras or Chennai. And they met. And as soon as they met, because this was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's request, so it was. They met by the banks of the river, Godavari. And immediately, spiritual recognition of one another, they embraced. Over on the right side of the painting, that's Mahaprabhu's servant, Krishnadas, and recognizing the followers of Ramananda Roy wouldn't really understand their ecstatic emotion, they arranged to meet together at a later point in time. And when they met at a later point in time, they had their discussions, as we heard yesterday. Same question that Lord Chaitanya asked in Udupi. Same beginning, entry point, follow Varnashram. And by that following of Varnashram properly and perfectly, then one can achieve liberation. Same. That's okay. Go further. And as they went further and further and further, this is Mahaprabhu giving mercy according to that particular recipient or vessel, the heart of Ramananda Roy, who was already recognized by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya as vastly learned in bhakti. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Lord Chaitanya, I wrote him off. He's just a sentimentalist. He doesn't know Vedanta Sutra, and he's talking all these sentimental things. But now I realize he's not just a sentimentalist. He's a very elevated Vaishnava. So the very elevated Vaishnava began expressing realizations that he never had before by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And eventually, after describing the mood of the love of the gopis, and especially, particularly, the mood of Srimati Radharani. It's a very, very elevated dialogue. Krishnadas Kaviraj somehow captured it so nicely. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed us mercy in the form not only giving teachings and realizations of those teachings, but here the painting is showing he showed simultaneously his form of Lord Chaitanya and his forms of Radha Krishna, who are combined of the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very esoteric. Who can understand these things? And in a similar fashion, he gave his mercy to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who wanted to give instructions to this young 24-year-old sannyasi to maintain his sannyas vows, teachings in Vedanta Sutra, because that's the orientation that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had, the Aishvarya feature. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked to explain Vedanta Sutra, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya heard what he had never heard before. And he came to the conclusion, wait a minute, you're not just a young sannyasi. You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya smiled and showed, Chaitanya Bhagavat says that he showed his Sadbhuja form, you see in the background, 6-arm form. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says he showed his form of Krishna and the personality of Godhead Vishnu, as you see in the painting. So he showed his mercy. And we're getting close to ending. Here's a nice verse, amongst many nice verses, from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, where, if you look closely, there's 10 different times the word daya appears in this verse. And I decided to discuss it a little bit because daya means his mercy or compassion. I wish to take 4 of them. Let's see the first one. Samyach Shastra Vivadaya. Daya. He mitigates disagreements of scriptures. In the painting on the left, he's giving teachings to students who had heard this and heard that, because if you don't have disciplic succession, it's easy to hear this and hear that and get spun out. So he made it very clear what's the proper teaching. And he did it in a way that wasn't harsh. He did it in a way that was very sweet and was compelling. And of course, on the right is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discussing with Prakashananda Saraswati and his thousands of sannyas disciples. And with the sannyas disciples hearing their discussion, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed to Prakashananda Saraswati the proper understanding of Vedanta Sutra. So, Vivadaya, there's many different apparent discrepancies in understandings of Scripture, and persons disagree what the Scripture says, and it may appear to them that even within one Scripture, it may say this, and then again it says that, and they're in conflict with one another. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of his daya features was he resolved all that for the sincere student. We heard already some, I mentioned yesterday Jamatri Muni was an acharya in Sri Vaishnava tradition. Jamatri Muni is known by different names according to the Sri Vaishnavas, but in Jiva Goswami's writings, he refers to him as Jamatri Muni because it's in Sanskrit, that is his name. And he gave teachings about jivas. And we've heard already, there are different ideas about jivas. Without going into the list, there are different ideas. Because Jiva Goswami was super scholar, he gave the conclusions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he understood and were realized by him according to Shastra, and elaborately discussed them and made reference to Jamatri Muni right in his writings. Sambandha Gyan. We all know what that term means. Sambandha, relationship. The relationship of living entities to the supreme living entity. Sambandha Gyan. The source of everything, and one of the things that comes from the source is jivas. What's that relationship? There are different ideas. Even that there's living entities. If you're a follower of Shankaracharya, there's no such thing. Because there's only one thing. But when you accept that there's jivas, then what's the relationship? And then you get different isms. And there's abundant. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this teaching. The relationship is oneness and difference. Emphasis can be oneness, emphasis can be difference, different ways of looking at differences. Inconceivable simultaneously both. Just this morning, I'm listening to a conversation with Srila Prabhupada in February 1977. That was the year that Prabhupada left the world. Later that year, he is in Bhubaneswar and he's discussing this topic in a room conversation. And Prabhupada was tireless in helping those that wanted to get the right understanding to get the right understanding. And when they had misunderstandings, he would, help them recover from the misunderstanding. And repeat it, and repeat it, and repeat it, and repeat it. Different angles. So it was very clear. Very merciful. So this oneness and difference. It's not easy to, it's achintya. It's not easy to understand. But it's knowable when you hear from the right source. And that's something that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. Different understandings. Achintya Beda Bed Tattva. So out of the 10, here's another one that I wanted to highlight. Rasa Daya. And that's easy. He distributed, starting with the congregational chanting of the holy name, and then explaining the scriptures, and experiencing love for Krishna through chanting, and revealing the nature of Krishna through teachings, just like he did with Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, so they could understand not just conceptually, but experience. He, Mahaprabhu, there's this nice phrase. It's in one of the verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 1, 4th verse. This phrase, Unoto Jwala Rasa. Unato Jwala Rasa. Is that not only he revealed the topmost rasa, but it's a jwala, brilliantly shining rasa. He appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before. What's that? The most sublime and radiant jwala, mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. So he came not only to give prema, but Braja Prema. Wow. And that's the gift that we've all been given. And we don't even know what it is, except we received it. And we read about it. We're not meant just to read about it, we're meant to experience it. Here we are. At the end of a yatra in Udupi and Melkote, talking about Lord Chaitanya's mercy and giving not just the topmost rasa, but the mellow of conjugal love. Whew. What fortune? Who can say what fortune? Here's another daya. According to this verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, his daya causes jubilation in the heart. There's nice painting on both sides. In Kirtan, by the side of a river, where the devotees were engaged in worshiping the Supreme Lord. But the way that Mahaprabhu gave the experience through Kirtan was jubilation of the heart. Whoops. And then in his mood of loving separation, like in the forest of Vrindavan. Whether he was here or there, that was a mood, and the mood of love that he experienced was being passed on to others. In Antya-lila, chapter 12, the transcendental life and characteristics of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may always be heard, chanted, and meditated upon. He gives great happiness and jubilation. And one more out of the 10. Another daya. His gift of daya was that which glorifies the limit of conjugal love. Madhurya, Marya Daya. Madhurya, Marya Daya. Chaitanya Charitamrita. His exhibition glorifies the limit of conjugal love. What's the limit? There's no limit. Madness. There's a verse in the 11th canto where Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, and he describes this is the state of one who achieved perfection. To the world, they appear to be mad. This not means, literally they go mad, but the extent of their love is they're no longer in control. It may be like that. That was the situation with Madhavendra Puri. As he was reciting, he was also sobbing. And his disciple, one of his so-called disciples, came and criticized him. What are you doing? Get out of here. Ramchandra Puri. If I die seeing your face, my life is ruined. Go away. I don't ever want to see you again. Go wherever you like. But on the other side, the limit of conjugal love knows no limit. The painting on the right, coming before Lord Jagannath, fainting in ecstasy. The painting on the left, in his mood of ecstatic love, seeing the gopis in their loving dealings with Krishna, although he's Krishna and Radha, seeing it and fainting. Madness. Adi Lila, chapter 1, desiring to understand the glory of Radharani's love. This is a celebrated verse. The wonderful qualities in him that she alone relishes through her love. The Supreme Lord Hari, richly endowed with her emotions, appeared from the womb of Srimati Sachi Devi as the moon appeared from the ocean. So how can one understand these things without, because the previous verses, Krishna was wanting, but he couldn't experience, although he's Krishna, he couldn't experience her love because you have to be in the mood of the lover to experience the love for the beloved, the subject-object, language of grammar. So he had to become the subject, not just the object. And so he did. It's like hard to understand. Worldly, it's hard to understand. But that's what he did. And one more. And this is our last one, and we're done for this morning. Amando Daya, awakening good fortune. I was there when this painting or photograph on the left was taken. This is on Fifth Avenue. The person playing Mridanga, Sunanda, the one jumping up in the air with his kartals is Jai Sachinandana, was in the Sanskrit department, and it's what we did every day, as I described yesterday. We went out into Manhattan and chanted Hare Krishna. We didn't always have photos like this, but that was for Back to Godhead magazine. And naturally so, the good fortune awakens. Through the bestowal of that good fortune by the one who gives good fortune. That's the Audarya feature of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let's circle back, and to have access to even know what's the difference between heaven and kingdom of God, it takes the internal potency, and the internal potency will manifest differently according to the inclination of the recipient. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so kind, he gave his mercy to everyone, qualified, unqualified. They could receive it differently according to their position. So same for us. So this is the conclusion of this particular yatra. And what do you want to take with you when you go to wherever you came from? So many have already gone or on the process of going, which is quite okay, because they have regular lives to lead. So what do you want? And there's no limit. I think I've already exceeded my time limit. You have something enthusiastic. You have a little microphone. I want to move on, but I'll take your question.
Guru Maharaj, Hare Krishna. You mentioned many times about the qualification that is needed is sincerity, and today a lot how Lord Chaitanya bestowed his mercy to those who are sincere, depending upon the receptivity of the person.
Exactly.
And so coming back to the process of deity worship. So this is, even though Madhvacharya's approach was more Aishwarya, but ours is different. And yet, to execute this important aspect, which is the deity worship, when bad qualities like pride, lack of humility, all those things, which we always see happening to many people, and this, even though there is some degree of sincerity to some degree is available for everyone, but when pride and humility, lack of humility creeps in, then teaching the procedures are not going to help in any way. So
Music to my ears. You singing my song. Premananda, you're singing my song. Go ahead.
So coming back, so in our whole of ISKCON, and of course we have to begin it with the temples, the training programs, it cannot be just the ritual part of it. It cannot be just the procedure.
Okay.
So there is a lot more done, even a little bit, even on the procedures. So where do we?
Where do we stand? What's your question? Where do we stand?
With regard to properly executing this most important.
You want, where do we stand can mean, what's your score? You get a 10 or a 0? That's what I understand by the question, where do we stand?
Where do we stand with regard to training and
Poor.
very poor?
Yeah. But training, not just in procedure, training in qualification. But it's gradual. Training in qualification, just like chapter 13 Bhagavad Gita, items of knowledge. So how do you get those items of knowledge? Bhakti. Without bhakti, you're not going to get those items of knowledge. Starting with amanit vam badam bitvam, you're not going to get them. If you have training and to some degree one gets it, that's, there's humility and pridelessness for starters, then that training, how do you train someone in humility and pridelessness, which is kind of what you're asking. Where do we stand? What's the score? Poor. I don't know how to assign a number, but some are more qualified, some are less qualified, and in just a general overall not doing so well, in my opinion. Can we do much better? Much better. What to do? Training and education, but not just procedures. So now I understand better what you were speaking about the other day. Training and education and good example. It's just like parenting. If you want nice children, be a good parent. Don't be something other than a good parent and expect nice children. It's not a guarantee. You can give training and education to a child. You can give training and education to the brahmanas in our temples and brahmanas that are far from our temple, living away. Training and education. But build primary way of building character is good example. Isn't it? Then there's items of training, but that's the principal one. Yes. Someone has the microphone in the back. You have the microphone. Oh. Someone in the front wants to ask something, and that's it for this morning because we're going to move on. You had 2 microphones.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. In continuation to that question,
Speak slowly.
Yesterday, Mahaprabhu's discussion with the Tattvavadis, there Mahaprabhu emphasized hearing and chanting. And in the Madhva Sampradaya, they are following Varnashram and deity worship. Those are the principles. So it's easy to
speak slowly.
Yeah, it is easy to create some benchmarks, assessment for evaluating the progress. But when it comes to the our sampradaya, we have hearing chanting is the basis, and how do we have some kind of metrics to measure, because that becomes a bit challenging because it can go to the esoteric side. Esoteric side is like what you have described. So just want to understand that part.
You want metrics for how you're doing with your hearing and chanting. That's the sum and substance of your question. There's characteristics or qualities or lakshana, whatever term you like. And when those are exhibited, those are metrics or standards. I mean, just like Premananda gave the example, pride and, a competitive spirit and envy and, those are things you can't see. But a metric of the quality of one's hearing and chanting is that they're missing or they're washed away. They may be there, but by training, they can be washed away. So metric is that those characteristics, it's come to the stage of nishtha by bhajana kriya, which affects anarjana vritti. So those are metrics. And for example, something I've said hundreds of times, pride destroys everything good. Where there's pride in the heart, train and train and train and dance and sing, and it destroys everything good. Pride destroys everything good. So when pride is gone, what's there? Amanit vamadam bitvam. There's symptoms. And then gradually as pride is destroyed, there's steadiness. And, the steadiness in the mood. That's a metric. How do you measure mood? It's not measurable by a yardstick. It's the mood of always wanting to be in service to the Vaishnavas. And there's other metrics. One simple metric of following the principles, chanting 16 rounds, those are some measurable metrics. And then there's other metrics that aren't so measurable. But as far as her question and your question, they're perceivable when somebody is proud. And it's not always manifest in one way. There's multiple ways. But it's problematic. It leads to it brings about internal conflict, and it leads to interpersonal conflict. Those are metrics. And I'm going to end. Thank you very much. See you after breakfast. What's now? Breakfast? Yes? What's breakfast? Okay, tell them.
So, my second class,